John Henry Bonham, Moby Dick.
I think that they're coming to listen to what you're playing and not just to look at you and see what you are. I mean, I remember when I first went to see the Beatles, it was to look at them, you know. It wasn't, you didn't really bother what you were listening to.
Yeah.
And today, it's not what you are, it's what you're playing.
John Bonham was arguably the greatest rock drummer in history. You may know him by the name Bonzo or recognize his Led Zeppelin symbol with the 3 interlocking circles, or maybe he was the very first drummer you ever saw playing an acrylic drum kit in the 70s. Bonzo was a force to be reckoned with. His drumming was a display of sheer power and energy, which was showcased on every single Led Zeppelin record and during every live performance that he did. There's so many reasons why John Bonham was so great, and by the end of this video, I think you'll agree with me that John Bonham was a true drumming genius. That is, if you don't think so already. Let's dive in. The term power has become synonymous with Bonham's drumming, and when I think about that word and John Bonham's drum parts, songs like Dazed and Confused, Rock and Roll, and In My Time of Dying are just a few tracks that come to mind. The way he plays the opening groove on Rock and Roll, the way he plays the shots and the drum fills after the guitar solo on In My Time of Dying, and we can't forget that very first drum fill in Dazed and Confused that transitions into the main 12/8 groove. Or even the intro to many drummers' favorite Zeppelin track, Achilles' Last Stand off of Presence.
John's drumming on Achilles' Last Stand was ferocious. It was a ferocious number, I seem to remember. It's a complicated part, but it takes a lot of technique to keep going and to sound fresh.
There's a track on Presence called For Your Life and also Achilles' Last Stand, and they really exemplify how he could move like the tide within a track and create so much excitement.
Bonham redefined what it meant to be a rock drummer, and a huge part of that was the way that he played the kit, with an incredible amount of power and energy. But Bonham also had discipline when he played, and he knew exactly what the music needed. What Is and What Should Never Be off of Led Zeppelin 2 is a great example of this. Listen to the way Bonham transitions from the verse to the chorus, where he starts light on the ride with a cross stick, and then he moves into a much louder driving groove in the chorus.
Be the same.
Bonham's drumming was powerful, whether it was live or in the studio, and that's something that remained true throughout his entire career with Led Zeppelin.
Now I've reached that age, I've tried to do all those things the best I can.
So Led Zeppelin releases their debut album, and this is the very first time the world has ever heard the band. And within 10 bars on the opening track, Good Times, Bad Times, we hear Bonham start playing these crazy fast bass drum doubles, unlike any other rock drummers were playing at that time. And over the years, this type of playing became part of Bonham's signature sound, and it's something he's recognized for to this day. Here's what Bonham's playing in the first verse of Good Times, Bad Times, where he starts to introduce these bass drum doubles. So you're going to hear this type of playing all over the first Led Zeppelin record in Bonham's grooves and fills, but also on other tracks like Out on the Tiles, Since I've Been Loving You, Kashmir, and Black Dog. Let's take a listen to the intro of Black Dog off the 4th Led Zeppelin record, and then I'll demo just the drum part. There's no question that you're going to hear Bonham's incredible bass drum work on every single Led Zeppelin record, but some other specific tracks I would check out are Communication Breakdown, where Bonham plays some faster 8th note groupings with the kick. Communication Breakdown! and also Heartbreaker, All My Love, Out on the Tiles, and the Wonton Song, where you can hear Bonham play some quicker groupings of 3 as well. So I hope you're enjoying this deep dive into John Bonham's drumming, and I just wanted to take a second and let you know that we've transcribed the entire Led Zeppelin discography for you inside of Drumeo. I know when I first got into Led Zeppelin and John Bonham's drumming, I was always looking for transcriptions and trying to figure out what John Bonham was playing on so many of those iconic tracks. So all you need to do is click the link right below this video, and you can get a 7-day free trial to Drumeo to check out all of those iconic drum parts. And with that, let's move on and let's check out what makes John Bonham's feel so incredible. What a lot of drummers forget is that Bonham was influenced by jazz, blues, and R&B. Jazz drummers like Joe Morello, Buddy Rich, Gene Krupa, and Max Roach, this is where all of those triplets came from. Just listen to tracks like Good Times, Bad Times, or the Lemon Song, and you'll hear the beauty of Bonham's one-of-a-kind time feel. And speaking of his laid-back feel, just listen to the shots at the end of the first chorus in Out on the Tiles, and you're really going to hear him lay back on each one of those hits. Now the thing about Bonham was that his time wasn't metronomically perfect, but that was part of what made his time feel so incredible. He had the ability to push and pull the time depending on where the music was going. And to take things further, during a fill or a groove, he'd often adjust the feel using straight 8th or 16th notes or even triplets to change things up entirely, even just for a brief second. On tracks like Since I've Been Loving You and No Quarter, you'll hear Bonham's brilliant use of subdivisions and how he uses them to influence the feel of the music. Another part of Bonham's unique feel was his use of syncopation, which you can hear on so many Led Zeppelin tracks. The way he shifts the kick patterns and even the backbeats off of the quarter and 8th note beats to the E's and the ahs is definitely a tip of the hat to jazz and R&B influences.
When we went off to America, we were really exposed to so much more breadth of music, and John really devoured the great drummers of the time, Alphonse Mouzon, Bernard Purdie.
Well, this type of playing is evident even on the earlier Led Zeppelin records. Some of my favorite examples are on the later records like Houses of the Holy and In Through the Outdoor, where Bonham uses a ton of syncopated hi-hat openings as well. Two great examples are from the tracks The Crunge and Fool in the Rain. John Bonham had a way of creating grooves that had a melody within themselves. And these grooves were so recognizable that really anyone could recognize them, even if they didn't play drums. So if I were to play something like this, you know immediately that that's the intro from Rock and Roll from Led Zeppelin 4. Or if I played this groove, you know that that's the opening groove from Immigrant Song off of Led Zeppelin 3. These types of grooves have Bonham's signature all over them, and as history has proven, they've really stood the test of time. Here's a few other classic Bonham grooves that you may recognize. The last one we'll look at is from When the Levee Breaks, one of Bonham's most famous and probably most debated drum grooves of all time. Take a quick listen to this. So, when they recorded this groove in the lobby of Headley Grange, they used 2 microphones mounted about halfway up the first set of stairs. They compressed the drums like crazy and then ran everything through a Binson Echo Rec delay device, which resulted in the classic affected groove that you hear on the record. Now, without any effects, this is the groove that Bonham actually played on that recording. And if you don't believe me, I challenge you to go do some of your own research. Here we go. Now, when Bonham played the song live with the band, he would still add in the kick on the E of beat 1, which you hear produced by the delay on the record, and he'd also add in some ghost notes and other embellishments as well. So we're talking about John Bonham, and we have to talk about his legendary drum solos. On record, there's only 2 that were released. Moby Dick from Led Zeppelin 2, previously known as Pat's Delight, and Bonzo's Montreux from Coda, which was released a few years after Bonham passed away. But when Zeppelin was touring, Bonham would do a 15 to 30 minute solo pretty much every single show while the rest of the band took a break. And these quickly became an audience highlight early on for Zeppelin fans.
We'd do the Moby Dick intro, then he'd start playing, and he'd go through everything. He'd be doing complicated rhythm patterns, you know, it's his chance to have some fun.
So Bonham had a standard outline for his solos, but what he would play each night was always different. He would start with sticks, then move into playing with his hands on the kit, sometimes even including some congas, which he usually had over on his left side. And then on tours where he had a pair of timpani, he would do an entire section using those before ending the solo with sticks again. So to start, let's look at some classic Bonham ideas that he would use in his solos and also in his drum fills as well. The first being his signature Bonham triplets. So then he would move that idea around the kit in a whole bunch of different ways, but the most famous is using crossovers like this. Another triplet-based idea that Bonham would use all the time, and especially in the recorded version of Moby Dick from Led Zeppelin 2, was one based on the single-stroke 4 rudiment, often called bucket of fish, which was right, left, right, kick. Bonham was a fan of jazz drummer Max Roach, and this was a melodic idea that Max used quite often in his jazz playing and in his solos. So who knows, maybe Bonham actually picked this idea up from Max in the first place. The idea sounds like this. Sometimes he played this idea exactly like that around the kit, but oftentimes he also worked it into a 3-beat phrase, something you can hear him do quite often in his solos and also in his drum fills. Here's one of Bonham's drum fills from the song No Quarter off of Houses of the Holy, where you can hear him use this idea in a 3-beat phrase. Moving into the second part of Bonham's solos, he usually started playing with his hands instead of drumsticks. Check out some of these moments from solos he performed in 1970 and in 1977. Pretty crazy what he could do during this part of his solo, and in that last clip you even saw him use a set of congas which he toured with in the early 70s, and that gave him a nice contrast in pitch compared to his low-tuned toms. The third section of his solo is where he started using timpani. He started touring with these around 1972, so over the years his solos continued to evolve based on the gear that he was touring with. Check out this clip of Bonham soloing with the timpani to the left of his kit. So that's pretty crazy, right? It sounds like they're hooked up to some kind of synth or phaser or something like that, but all he's doing is rapidly adjusting the pitch of the drum using the pedal on the timpani. And this was just another way he captivated the audience during his drum solos. A John Bonham drum solo was a work of art. It was a display of technical ability, dynamic control, spontaneous creativity, and different textures ranging from sticks to hand drumming to timpani and even strikes of the gong. This idea of exploring different textures on the kit is something we also see Bonham experiment with on Led Zeppelin recordings like 4 Sticks, where he's literally playing with 2 sticks in each hand. The Rain Song, which is a rare occasion of Bonham playing with brushes. And also In the Evening, where he's heard playing timpani during the intro section. So we've made it to the end, and I hope you've enjoyed diving into the history and drumming of John Bonham. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What is your favorite John Bonham drum recording or Led Zeppelin song? Inside of Drumeo, we also have the entire Led Zeppelin discography transcribed note for note. So if you want to learn more about any of these songs we went over here or any other songs in the Led Zeppelin catalog, you can check those out on the Drumeo site. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.